All right, here we go. You know the routine: no nets, no follow ups. What else should I say?
Let's just start.
Okay, we're just going to start.
This is from Tupac Ghost. And he wants to know, how do you rationalize talking to the cops about your boy's bike and the guy ratting on you about the tattoo shops?
Okay, this guy is making a reference to me talking to the cops about getting my boy's bike back. And I'll tell you the difference. The biggest difference is I wasn't exchanging information to get out of a legal dilemma. I was trying to get property that belonged to the Hells Angels, to Hells Angel members, one being my son, that we belonged that belonged to us. We had the paperwork on it, the pink slips, whatever you want to say. But I took this question because I believe the guy really didn't know the difference, and it seems to me there's a lot of street ethics that people don't get nowadays. You don't give information to the cops to get yourself out of a jam. In the old days, you didn't even tell on anybody just for the sake of telling on them. You didn't trade information to get out of a dilemma or to get someone in trouble. That's the bottom line. Okay.
Okay, the next one's from Motorhead Z20. It appears you are anti violence.
Well, I try to stay away from violence. I don't think violence is productive. But on the other hand, one of my positions is to be an effective peacemaker, you need to be willing to go to war. But, violence is a last resort. It's really prehistoric, man.
I
You
don't
see
think
all
it's
these guys.
prehistoric.
Well,
I think it's a big problem.
Well, it is a problem, but it's a prehistoric behavior as far as I'm concerned. I mean, if you can't sit down and try to work something out, it may come to blows or whatever. But I mean, nowadays people get offended and their feelings hurt, and they either want to sue you or shoot you. Anyways,
Okay, John Ralston writes, did Sonny have the backing of the club in Dead in Five Heartbeats?
no, he didn't, and he didn't need it. That was an independent project that he was doing. They were, you know, fictitious clubs. There was some flack over it, and there was some controversy because I never read the book, I never saw the movie, but I was told that the book starts out with a gunfight in a casino, and the book came out before the Laughlin shootout was adjudicated, and there were some people that were involved in the shootout going to trial that were upset about it. But
Sonny didn't care.
well, no, he didn't. But anyways, all right, next one.
Okay, Timothy Sane. What happened to Little Joe?
Little Joe from Purdue transferred back to Dago. He was originally from Dago, went to Purdue, and then went back to Dago. He was one of the Raggedy Wranglers from San Bernardino, hard partiers back in the 60s and 70s. And as he got older, he started having health issues, and he got sick and passed. Man, he was a good guy. I really enjoyed him. Spent a lot of time in Ventura. He was 100% Hell's Angel.
Okay, living on cash. Not many people that really can do that.
Not anymore.
No. How many in-house murders has there been as opposed to outside?
Well, I'm not going to paint myself into a corner. I mean, the record speaks for itself. You can look up how many murders happened in the late 60s and through the 70s up until today. Most of them are unsolved, and law enforcement claims many of them were in house. I write about it a little bit in my upcoming book, but I would say there was more suspicion of in house than outside sources for murders.
Okay, just a good fellow writes, any stories on Ohio?
Well, yeah, a lot of stories on Ohio. Recently, well, maybe it's been a while. Maybe it's been a year or so. I participated in a show, Secrets of the Hells Angels, that should have been titled Not So Many Secrets of the Hells Angels, because they didn't really divulge a lot of stuff. But episode 2 has a really, really great episode on Cleveland and all the shenanigans there in the 70s. Gives you a good history of Butch and Cleveland members interviewed, ex-Cleveland member. But I would check that out if you're really interested in Cleveland.
I don't know if people would call the things they did shenanigans. That cracks me up that you call them shenanigans.
Well, I mean,
they were
boys will be boys.
They were scary. Jesus.
Anyways.
Okay, Chris One Cares.
None of your shenanigans, Beverly.
Can you speak on old ladies? What's the influence a president's old lady holds? Banjo, BF.
Well, they should hold no influence or sway, but they do. I mean, they've got the leader's ear. A lot of pillow talk going on, perhaps, and they influence their man. And I'm not saying that it's a good thing. It's probably a bad thing, but it's a fact. And if you go back and study your history, I mean, a lot of these wars were over women century after century after century. A lot of biblical stories involved with women, so keep that in mind. I think they have access to the leader's ear. They can influence it.
Okay, John Price writes, love the show, but the background is hilarious considering the topic.
Well, listen, working on a new studio, going to be a lot of my memorabilia from a lot of pictures and whatnot. Beverly and I are working on it ourselves, so we'll get to it soon, and that will probably be the new in-house studio for our YouTube and Patreon.
Or Speak of the Devil.
Speak of the Devil, sure.
Okay, Bob Hope writes, the best motorcycle rider you ever rode with.
Rode with a lot of good riders, but I'll tell you who I was really impressed with was Bill Reed. He really impressed me.
Who was he?
Bill Reed was a saint and slave from San Fernando Valley, and then later became a Hell's Angel. I remember going through Box Canyon in the middle of the night with him, and we were all going through there, and that's when Tall Paul got in a wreck. He got paralyzed. And I'm going to add a little humor here. It's not funny, but it's kind of a funny story. So the Hells Angels are there, and the slaves are there. Paul's fucked up, he can't move, and the sun's coming up. And there was this very large woman there. And Jim Passmore was there, and in order to keep the sun out of Tall Paul's eyes, he had the woman stand in the line of the sun and cast a shadow over Paul, and then he made her move as the sun was rising. And everybody was laughing, even Paul was laughing. I mean, that's...
How about the lady?
The lady, she was moving per instructions. I mean, we were some fun-loving guys.
Okay. Phil Crow writes, where is the Flathead?
The Flathead. I really can't tell you, but I will tell you what happened. I sold that Flathead to a guy that came to me and begged me to buy it. And said he was going to keep it, give it to his kid, his grandkid's kid, and whatever it may be. And probably 6 weeks later, I got a phone call, and the bike was in the newspapers. Hell's Angel bike for sale, classic. He had bought it and was reselling it.
Flipped it, yeah.
Dirty motherfucker, yeah. So we had to go have a conversation with him. But anyways, I don't know what happened to the bike from that point on.
Okay, this is great. This is a great kind of questions you get.
Okay.
Dan Garrison, my dad has a theory on Tiny and Lonesome.
Okay, that's Dan.
Yeah.
Dan, what you failed to do is give me the theory.
Have his mom call you.
Well, your mom probably knows. I talked it over with her, but and all joking aside, listen. Well, maybe I'm not joking, but I think Lonesome got killed in a boating accident. I'm pretty sure there was no hokey pokey. I went to the funeral. Tiny just disappeared. But if you've got a theory on either one of them, hear it, and I'll give you my input on it. Okay, next one.
But you have to include it in the question.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
have to get it in our hand.
You know what you're like? It's like when I wrote my first book, I was turning it into the publisher. I had an editor assigned to me, and I was writing things down, but because I had such clarity as to what happened, I wasn't explaining it to the audience.
Yeah.
And that's what's going on here. Look, I don't know what your theory is. You got to tell us your theory. So, waiting for your theory.
Just like when you answered the last question, you said Bill Reed, the best writer. They don't know who Bill Reed is.
Everybody.
No, they don't.
Well, he passed stickers out back in the 70s. I know Bill Reed, so I figured everybody knew
Okay. Mike McGrath writes, "What's your martial arts background?"
Now, I'm reluctant to say this because now I'm going to have these 225, 230 pound cage fighters hunting me down, challenging me, but I'm going to give it a shot. I studied a traditional Japanese style. It was very similar to Shotokan, but it had a lot of soft stuff involved in it. From there,
What is soft stuff?
soft, hard style and a softer style. It's a style of martial arts. It's like bone to bone, and then you're trying to not get beat up while you're fighting somebody and going bone to bone with them. I had I guess I might as well brag all the way. I had a third or fourth degree. It's been so long. I think I'm going to say third degree in that style. That was a Japanese traditional style. And then from there, I went to One Hop Kwon-Do Kung Fu, which was based in Kaju Kempo karate that Ed Parker eventually brought part of it over here. And then the Kaju Kempo guys kept it in Hawaii. And Al DeCoscos broke off and created One Hop Kwon-Do. And I've got a fourth degree in that. And then I started training with Larry Hartzell, Chris Kent, Danny Santo, Ted Lukai. These were all JKD guys, and kind of followed Bruce Lee's stuff. And I started really getting off into sticks and daggers, and the Filipino stick fighting.
Well, you
and,
still do that
well,
out in the garage.
I still do that.
Yeah.
I don't do it like I used to. The recovery time is much longer now in my late 70s. So that's my martial arts background. Larry Hartzell, probably one of the toughest martial artists I ever met. Eric Lee, perhaps the most talented martial artist I ever met.
Is he related to Bruce Lee?
Well, Lee's a real common name in China. It's like Smith here in the United States.
Okay. And you said many people were asking about Tony Spilatro.
Oh, yeah, Tony Spilatro. Well, I'll get into Tony Spilatro a little bit here. We were going to Cody, Wyoming, and we pulled into Vegas. Old man John told us to stay out of Vegas. Don't go to Vegas, he said. We went to Vegas anyways, and we stayed at the Riviera, and we went to check in. I had reservations. I called ahead of time. It's a little trick I learned on the road. You call in ahead of time. So when you get there, you got a reservation. You know, there's nothing they can do about it. You have a credit card, and it's all booked and ready to go. So we showed up at the counter, and they were freaking out. And they kept stalling us. And after about 35, 40 minutes, this little guy shows up there, and he's just being really rude. And him and I are kind of like butting heads. And I see this guy's about something. And I'm respectfully telling him, hey, man, we're just passing through. We already paid for the rooms. We're not leaving. We're going to stay, and we're going to get our rooms. And him and I kind of hit it off after a little bit. You know, he saw I wasn't backing down. I respectfully was addressing all of his questions. And I didn't know it at the time. It didn't mean anything to me at the time. But later, when Casino came out, I realized that it was Tony Spilatro that I spent the evening with. Wound up, he taught me how to play craps and dice, and we just hung out in the Riviera with him, and he was a lot of fun. I guess he's a very dangerous guy. Everybody knows what ultimately happened to him, but that's my Tony Spilatro story. But he was an interesting guy. He might write it a little bit more detailed in the future. I don't know, but that's my Tony Spilatro story. I wanted to talk a little bit about Jeff Pike, and I don't know if Jeff Pike rings a bell to a lot of you. It should. He replaced George Weggers as the international leader of the Bandidos, and if the federal government has it their way, he's going to spend the rest of his life in federal prison. And I always talked about my relationship with George Weggers, but I also had a close relationship with Jeff Pike. I just never really talked about it a lot. At the same time, with George, I was dealing with Jeff. My first recollection of Jeff is we met the Bandidos up at Malibu Lake at a house there after the war kicked off in Europe, the Nordic Bike War. And, we went there, we had our first sit down. We were trying to keep the war from bleeding into the United States. And what happened was, guys that ultimately we thought were going to be adversaries turned out to have a long-standing friendship with them. I wound up nurturing a friendship with both George and Jeff Pike. And even in conflict, we were friends. And, when the war got settled, they signed the peace treaty in Europe. Little things were starting to pop up here and there. I went to jail for a year. I fought a case. I came home. I was home just a couple of weeks, and we had the Laughlin shootout. And things were kind of getting hot and cold in Europe, so I thought it'd be smart to have a sit down with the Bandidos. And what I did was I got permission to travel to Amsterdam from my high control probation officer. Amsterdam was having a 25-year party, and I figured I'd go over there, party with everybody, talk to the Hells Angels over there, and then have a sit down with the Bandidos while I was there. But once I arrived in Amsterdam, I was refused entry. They wanted to hold me in a detention center for 5 days and then send me back to America. And I just said, you know what, send me back now. I'm not staying in no detention center. I haven't done anything. I have a pass, have a passport. And they were kind of, yeah, whatever. We're not going to allow you in the country. And the first available flight was just, just by chance, was to Houston, Texas. And they said, well, we can send you to Houston, Texas. And I thought, you know what? I went over here to party and to meet with the Bandidos. I'll go to Houston, Texas and party and meet with the Bandidos. And that's what I did. We flew into Houston. Jeff Pike picked me up with about 20 other Bandidos. Spent like 3 or 4 days with them talking about peace, the future of the clubs. And ultimately, Weggers got in trouble. Weggers dropped out of the club. Jeff took over as their leader, which immediately launched a lot of interest in him. And by the end of the decade, Jeff had replaced George as the leader of the Bandidos. And the target switched from George Weggers to Jeff Pike. And by the end of 2018, Jeff and his vice president both went to trial. They both got found guilty of RICO, and both of them are doing life. They went back as far as 2000 on their crimes as this racketeering stuff. And they convicted them on testimony of informants. And these are people trying to extract themselves from their legal woes. One of the interesting things was Sonny testified at Jeff's trial. And I'd always heard that Sonny's posture and his position via satellite from San Francisco to Texas was more self-serving. I talked to Jeff Pike's lawyer this week. I talked to him, made a couple calls into him, and he got back to me with this information. He thought Sonny helped. He don't think he hurt Jeff Pike's case in any way. Spent the last week discussing the case with Dick Durrigan, that's Jeff's lawyer, and his attorney still feels that Jeff is innocent, you know, and I think that he is. These guys get in trouble, man, and they just try to get themselves out by making up this shit, telling the government whatever they want. I think, in all likelihood, if Jeff doesn't get some action, he's probably going to spend the rest of his life locked up, and he's going to be like Taco. He's going to die in prison. It's a sad way to go. It's a useless way to go. Jeff is a good guy. He's not a hothead. He's not crazy. And I think what got me on this thought this week was I testified in a one percenter trial for two different clubs, and once the case is adjudicated and the jury comes back, if I can get permission from the clubs, I'll mention who they were. But the prosecution brought in their special expert witness, and the defense brought me in as their special extra witness. And that was some of the things I was talking to the attorneys in Texas about. I think the Bandidos have a RICO case going there now. And you know what? I'd like to get right in the middle of it. I'd like to help the Bandidos out. I'd like to help the Outlaws out, pagans, Mongols, anybody. I'd even help the Hells Angels out if they had an interest, which I'm not going to hold my breath for. But that's what made me start thinking about this. Now, I had an interesting day today. I went to a memorial for Michael Madsen. A lot of you know who he is. He's an actor. He passed away a few weeks ago. And I had a reunion with my former brother, Chuck Zito. And we had a couple-hour talk. And I'm going to bring some stuff to the video next week about what Chuck and I talked about. It had to do with Irish, Sandy, and Vinny, and he thinks I got it wrong. And after listening to Chuck, the information I received may have been cherry-picked, if you will, only given a West Coast perception of it. So I'm going to come back with that next week. It was great to see Chuck. He looks great. It was a long day for me, and it was very sad, But I'll talk about it more next week. Was a lot of people there paying tribute to Michael, and Chuck and myself were among the guests there. So, anyways, that's it for this week. I hope you guys will stay with me. I hope that you'll comment, follow, and keep coming back. If you don't like the commercials, go to Patreon. Or I was also told there was a message in the comments that they have some sort of program on YouTube. You can pay extra premium and get no commercials. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know a lot about this stuff. I had to wait a couple of hours today to get my boy over here to help me with my, had too much data on my camera, whatever that means. But anyways, I'll be back next week. Any questions? You got any questions about Jeff? Everybody needs to start thinking about this stuff. These life sentences, man, they pass them out like they're nothing. I know when I had my last case, count 6, 7, and 8 were all mandatory minimums of life. And I'm thinking about Jeff, thinking about Taka, he passed in prison. And you know what? It's not a way to go, man. And we all have to pool together and exchange information. These are things we used to do with clubs we were at odds with. We exchange information for the lawyers to keep up the good fight. So anyways, I'm starting to ramble now. It's been a long day. So thanks again. I'll talk to y'all later.